Hello, this is Belinda Coombs, music composer of Ring of Pain. Today I want to show you a behind the scenes look at how I created some of the music for Ring of Pain, but with a particular focus on the random music system that was created specifically for the game and how it works. So my thoughts behind creating the music were I wanted it to be textured to match the artwork and visuals. I also wanted to blend traditional orchestral music with sound design, which is something I really enjoy doing, so using noise and distortion, but still include the suggestion of fantasy in the music through melodies and instrumentation. And my thoughts were also to leave space for the player to think when playing the game. So in creating the music, I didn't want to be overly thematic with the music because of this. So when coming up with an idea for the sound for the first area of the game, which is the nest area, we wanted it to be somewhat light, not too heavy and dark, but still suggestive of a strange world. I also really like the concept of sound mass in music. So sound mass is where you are hearing all of the sounds being played as a whole rather than the individual parts. A good example of sound mass is rain. So when it rains, we don't hear the individual droplets of water. We hear all the droplets of water, and we hear that as a sound as a whole. So this can be implemented in music where you don't hear the individual pitches and notes being played, but rather all the notes being played as a whole. An example of this, and something I use throughout Ring of Pain, is using sound mass with pizzicato strings. So using a lot of pizzicato strings at different pitches to create a sound. So here is a snippet of some of the nest music with some of these techniques being used. The second area of the game is called the swamp area. So with the music, I decided I actually wanted it to sound swamp-like and to try and replicate sounds that you would hear in a swamp through instruments. I imagined insects and frogs and toads and dark creatures, and then I went about trying to make sounds that would evoke these creatures. I also decided this area could definitely be more experimental and avant-garde. So to create a swampy sound, I did a bunch of recordings on different instruments and just to try and get different sounds to see what I could come up with. So here is an example of a few of those recordings that I did, as well as the final results of sounds in the game. The third area of the game is called the ruins area. So here the buildings are in ruins and decayed, and it has a very cold, dark feeling to it. So to me this area also felt it was almost at the heart of this dark world that we were in. So for the music, I decided I wanted it to be more spiritual. It's still dark, still brooding, but somewhat spiritual. I also really like the idea of the sound of wind tunnels. To me, an area that's barren and cold would probably be really windy and dark, so I kind of had that in mind as well when I was creating the music. So here is a snippet of the ruins area music. When I first played the demo of the game, I realised there was a problem, which was you die a lot as you're learning how to play the game, and you keep going back to the start. Each time you die, it can be quite a quick turnaround, so the problem with this from the perspective of the music is I didn't want the music to become repetitive and suffer from, Groundhog Day syndrome, which is every time the player is starting the game again, they are hearing the same piece of music played. This can really affect the immersive experience of a game. So, the solution I decided to implement was to create a random music system. So, what this meant was the music would need to be created in parts rather than one linear track, and then any of these parts could be played at the start at random. The parts would sound similar by creating a similar sound palette, but different enough so it didn't sound repetitive. So, in this slide, what I'm trying to show is what the music looks like in parts from the system's perspective. So, here we have part A, B, C, D of the music. And then when the game starts, any one of these parts is selected by the system. So, for example, at the start of the game, imagine part B is selected. Then, once part B is finished playing, another part is randomly selected. So, for example, part D. After part D has finished playing, another part is selected, and so on. If the player was to die and go back to the start of the game, any one of these parts could then be selected as the music to play at the start of the game. It all sounds a little complicated, I know, so hopefully this next video will help. In this video, I'm playing music in my digital audio workstation, so this is not what it actually looks like in the game engine. This is just to help visualize what is going on. So in this example, the game has randomly selected part A to play first. After part A plays, the system will randomly choose another part. So in this example, the system has chosen to play part D next. This would allow the music to give the player a different audio experience every time they played the game, but because all the parts sound similar, the player shouldn't really notice what's going on and will allow them to focus on strategizing in the game. The only thing with doing the music in this way was that each part of the music needs to be able to seamlessly transition from and into each other part. So there was a little bit of work getting that together. And again, after part D plays through, the system then will randomly select another part. So in this example, the system has randomly selected part G to play next. So now I want to show you what the random music system sounds like in the game. This is a video from actual gameplay footage of Ring of Pain in the swamp area. To help visualise what is happening with the music, in the bottom right hand corner, I'm showing an example of which part of the music has been randomly selected by the system to help visualise what is happening. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the music of Ring of Pain. And I really hope you enjoy playing Ring of Pain, because I certainly had a lot of fun creating the music for the game.